Today we're going to be taking a look at these three Mac laptops. I didn't deliberately go out of my way to get these, I just happened to end up with them over time. And in this stack we've got a 13-inch plastic Intel era MacBook Core Duo, a 15-inch PowerBook G4 and a 17-inch PowerBook G4. So whenever I have a device in my collection, I don't like having components that are guaranteed to fail, and all of these have got spinning rust hard disks in them. So ultimately we're going to go through and replace all of the disks with solid state drives. But in this video, although these are in generally good condition, the 15-inch PowerBook is a little more beaten up than the others with some case damage, and as I've never replaced disks in a machine of this era before, we're going to learn with that one first. So to replace the drive in this 15-inch PowerBook, I've got an IDE to mSATA adapter. It's a little 2.5-inch chassis that has a simple circuit board and a connector for a short mSATA drive, and I'll put a link in the description below for what we're going to use. So without further ado, let's get right to it. So the easy part is undoing the 8 or 9 trillion screws that hold this thing together. So I'm just using the iFixit guide to work out which screws to undo in which order. Now we've got all the screws undone, we've got to get the top of the laptop off. I have a pet peeve about laptops that you have to go in from the top in order to access the base, and this is no different. This bit, which is why I've slowed the video down, is actually really difficult, and especially near the front we have this catch we need to undo. At this point I just can't get this left hand side detached. This is why I dislike working with laptops that go in from the top so much. Modern HP laptops have this sort of problem all the time and they're just a nightmare. Eventually, I don't even know what I did, it just comes loose. I think part of the problem is that that side of the laptop is dented, so there's some damage near the power plug on that side. The iFixit instructions talk about there being a catch on the inside just to the left of the CD slot, and they sort of invite you to, and the instructions talk about getting a tool in there to try and defeat that catch. I don't know how to do this, I don't know what I'm doing here, and eventually it just comes apart. So we can see the disc at this point, but what I don't want to do is completely detach the top and risk mucking up that 15-year-old really fragile ribbon connector. So I'm just going to prop it up at the back and then we can remove the disc. Okay, so we're in the home straight now. We just need to get this old disc out and then we can swap over the old spinning rust disc into this nice shiny new SATA SSD. I haven't got the best footage for this, it's a little bit blurry cam, but basically it's a 2.5 inch chassis that holds an M-SATA SSD. So this is a 64 gig Transcend M-SATA SSD, so this is the shorter length than the traditional M.2 drives that we'd find in a normal laptop. The most critical piece of information I missed here is what we've done is we've taken the IDE 44 pin connector off of the existing drive and we fitted it onto the adapter. I'll put a link to the adapter in the description below, but basically it allows you to put an M-SATA drive into a 44 pin IDE laptop like we're doing here. Okay, so we're done. We're all back together. So now what?
Approximately 10 hours later.
So the next part that happened was that I ended up in an enormous fight with this machine. It turns out everything was completely fine. It's just that I didn't know what I was doing. So for me, Apple's really only interesting if they're running something older than OS X, right? If I wanted to run OS X, I would just go and buy a new Apple. So I was trying to get this thing running OS 9. I didn't realise that this particular PowerBook G4 wouldn't run OS 9, so I spent ages trying to boot and boot and boot. Eventually, I was like, you know what, fine. And so I go through and I just do a normal install of OS X Tiger. And then I thought, you know what would be interesting? Let's get the 8-bit guy's Planet X3 running on a virtual PC on our newly configured machine. So without further ado, let's get right to it. So this was something else that I got stuck on. PowerPC based Macs can run OS 9 within OS X in kind of a classic support mode. But in order to get to that, you either need to have had an OS 9 machine you've upgraded to OS X, or you need to install the OS 9 support onto OS X. The documentation wasn't particularly good on this, even when they expected you to be able to do it, so now it's extremely difficult. The idea is that you need to be able to find an OS X DVD that has on it some additional software that contains this classic support. What you're looking for is a disc called Additional Software and Apple Hardware Test. I managed to find a Dutch version of this, which I've downloaded a DMG of and is running on this machine. When this additional software installs, the only thing it supports is the classic support. So why this wasn't called Classic Support Installer is beyond me. But also, Apple. Once it's installed, you just need to go and configure it to use that as a system folder. Again, my system folder here has got the Dutch name, but when it's there, it runs. So that's it. That's all we need to do. So now we can go and run Real PC, which is an OS 9 virtualization environment for DOS, and then we can run Planet X3. Getting this working is dead easy. All we need to do is copy Planet X3 over to a folder on the machine, map that as a shared folder within Real PC, and run it. So just a little bit of a confession, I only bought this game the other day and I don't actually know how to play it, but here it is. Planet XC running on a PowerBook G4 with a brand new SATA SSD. So that's it. We've successfully managed to change the spinning Rust hard disk in this PowerBook G4 over to an SATA SSD. We've also managed to install the OS 9 classic support on top of OS X, and we've also managed to get that classic support to run Planet X3 in a DOS virtualized environment on top of the classic OS 9 virtualized environment on top of OS X running on PowerPC. So in one of the next videos we're going to look at swapping out the remaining disks in those other two laptops, the Intel Core Duo MacBook and the 17-inch PowerBook G4. I do hope you've liked this video, and if you do, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. Thanks very much, and thanks for watching.